Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast. Here's your host, Ronnie Welch.
What up, C10 Nation? First Ride Friday, Brandon Sisco, the Sisco Kid. We had a blast, and we definitely got into it big time. First Ride, he's about the perfect candidate for First Ride Friday, what the truck meant to him, and who the truck made him become over the process of years and the build. So sit back and enjoy this one because Brandon nailed it. Great job. We want to welcome Precision Replacement Parts, a new sponsor for First Ride Friday. Absolutely love their stuff. Used all their stuff on Yellowstone. And if you're looking to seal your build up right, then you're looking for Precision Replacement Parts. You can check them out at prp.com. So I'm talking windshield seals, door seals, cowl seals, vent seals, glass run channels, belt line moldings, you name it, they got it. And the cool thing about Precision Replacement Parts is they have such a great updated website, but they have such a good video tutorial. So for you do-it-yourselfers out there, you can buy the product, ask for it, request it, and get the right stuff, and then you'll have it ready to rock and roll when you do it yourself, and you'll have the video tutorial to check out. So welcome to the show, Precision Replacement Parts, and you can check them out at prp.com. Also, US Mags, which you can check out at us-mags.com. Have you guys checked out their 2018 stuff yet? I'm a big fan of the Indy and the Mandalay. See what you think. Let me know. They also have so many different styles. The Supreme Classics. I like the big slots in that. I'm thinking I might try to run those big slots on the OBS. The Artillery, the Mashburn, of course the Plain Jane. Got the Smoothie style. They also have the Truckin' series. Restomod is rad because they have so many different options in the Restomod. Pro Touring and so much more, including steering wheels. Check them out, us-mags.com. And I'm thinking you're going to dig some of the styles that they offer up. So, and then, of course, their new 2018 stuff. I wanted to thank all of you guys who jumped on board for the summer sale. We did a week-long summer sale. We kicked ass. You guys kicked ass. We moved a lot of gear, and that's pretty sweet to clear out some space and then get ready for some new stuff. So we'll sit down and design some new ideas and put them on shirts and see what you guys think and get ready for C10s in the park. That's where we'll be September. And then obviously Dino's in November and the Get Down. So a lot going on here. But wanted to thank you guys for taking advantage of that summer sale, and we got a ton of stuff shipped out. I think there might be a few orders that we're still going to kick out here in this last couple days. The stragglers that came in at the end, but we'll get everything shipped out by tomorrow, and you'll have it before you know it. So hope you guys enjoy this First Ride Friday. Tune back in on Tuesday for Brandon's full episode. Brandon Sisco Fab, Barrett Jackson now. And that was a fun one. It's a little long, but I tell you what, he's got a long story, and I'm enjoying that as well. We just knocked it out, so I haven't had time to sit through and go through it, but we'll get this First Ride Friday out, and then you'll have that full episode on Tuesday. You guys have a great week, a great weekend. Thanks for your support. Late. All right, First Ride Friday. This thing's going pretty good, and I think this is going to be one of the raddest first rides out there. So super stoked to get Brandon Sisco Fab, legend. I mean, really, honestly, if you look back. So we're going to hit it hard on this episode, but we're going to start off with First Ride Friday. So, Brandon, welcome to C10 Talk. Welcome to the show. Tell us about your first ride.
Hey, Ronnie, what's going on? Man, going way back. My first truck was a 76 Chevy C10, well, K10, I guess, 4x4, StepSide. When I was about 15 years old, my dad and I had a talk about me having my first car, and at the time, we just didn't have money to buy me anything, so he said if I wanted something to drive, I better build it. And so then I tried to figure out how to come up with money to buy a car, and my neighbor kid across the street raised lambs for 4-H and sold his lamb at the fair and made like $1,500 off of it. So I thought that was a pretty good idea. There's no way a 15-year-old kid in 1990 92 or 91 could come up with $1,500 quickly. So I joined 4-H. I got a lamb, and I raised it up. His name was Bart Simpson. And we lived out in the country, so I had a place to keep him and everything. And took him to the fair, slept in his pen with him, did all the stuff. I trained him and did everything we had to do. I showed him, and I got reserve grand champion and sold it and got about $1,500 at auction.
Nice.
And then, so then my dad said that we had a family member up in Fort Bragg, California, way north, that had a StepSide 4x4 in the family since brand new. And it still ran, but it was pretty beat up. And said it'd sell to me for $750. So we jumped to my dad's 69 Blazer 4x4 with a trailer. I paid for gas, and we drove all the way to Fort Bragg from Visalia and picked it up. I drove it on the trailer. And I want to say the first thing I did was clean it on the trailer, even though you could see through the door panels and the fenders and the bedsides and the cab floors, all that. I washed the hell out of it, so it was super clean, all the glass. It had an 8-track player in it. And I think I sat in that thing all day up on the trailer. I never got out of it. When we came home with it, I started tearing into it at, 15 years old, not knowing really what I wanted to do with it, except I wanted it to be big, and I wanted it to be baby blue for some reason, and I wanted to keep it stepside. So over the course of every day after school, every weekend, every vacation, summer vacation, I took it down to bare frame. My dad got some new wheels and tires for his Blazer, so he gave me his 36-inch Dixie Pegs. And I took a torch and cut my fenders and put the wheels and tires on there. And then at school, I took metal shop so I could build stuff at school when I was a junior in high school. So I built my first thing. I built a body lift for it, 4-inch body lift. Put that on. And then I had some tire clearance. I found a new bed. My dad helped me find some other pieces, got it running, pulled the motor out, put new gaskets and stuff on it, got it driving. And used to drive around out in the country where I lived, all the dirt roads and climb the hills and all that good stuff. And then my senior year, I had my dad towed it to school for me, and I put in auto shop class. And I went to 2 or 3 periods of auto shop and 2 periods of metal shop every day. So I just kept it at school every day in the metal shop and built a roll cage for it, put a 6-inch suspension lift on it. Then I took a night class at the adult school body shop that was next to the school and learned how to do all paint and body and everything there. And did all the body work, got it painted. I painted it, ended up painting it yellow last minute. Decided not to paint it baby blue. So I painted it 93 Corvette yellow, the newest color out back in 93 for the Corvettes. And it was a super bright, not a school bus yellow, it's a real bright yellow. Then I was coming up on 18 years old when I was almost done with it. And when my mom had passed away when I was younger, she had left some money to me that I got when I turned 18. So I put up a list together of stuff to buy, went all through the 4-wheel parts catalog, ordered everything I wanted from a place out of 4-wheel parts down in Anaheim. And I ordered Alcoa wheels, super swampers, a 12-inch super lift, bumpers, gears, air lockers, ARB. I ordered, you name it. I ordered everything I could. I ordered a bedwood kit with the stainless steel strips. A friend of mine from Pick 'em Up Truck Store in Visalia kind of took me under his wing and showed me how to do upholstery work, and we did all the upholstery in it ourselves. I just did everything as I possibly could, all the way from bare frame rails. At that point, they were sanded, painted, cut and buffed. Everything was gloss black and yellow underneath. I finally got done with it the year after I graduated high school. And I drove around for a while and then took it to a Super Chevy show in Magic Mountain and won Best of Show 4x4 that Super Chevy. I was 19 with it. And I drove it to Phoenix, went to school at ITT, and found out that I couldn't register it down here or insure it as an 18-year-old kid. It was just wasn't going to work for me, so I parked it, and it sat for a couple years until I went back home, back to California, and then I made it my daily driver.
Dude, I mean, I remember you posting that truck, and to think that was your truck. Now, granted, you posted it. We'll post it when we drop this. Dude, that was rad. I mean, it was like definitely some at the time. I mean, Swampers, the yellow. It sounds like you wanted the baby blue. I think the yellow at the time. It is funny to think 25 years later how popular yellow was, kind of the Baywatch, I remember there was like the 93 ZR2 S10 trucks, the Toyotas, the Lifeguard. Yellow was, the 90s were yellow.
Yeah, that was an eye catcher for sure. It was like the sun coming at you down the road. The Super Swampers were loud and obnoxious, and I went through a lot of trucks to build that truck. I learned a lot about square bodies building that truck. I went through probably 3 or 4 cabs, a lot of front ends. There was nothing left body-wise on the truck except for the front balance panel under the headlights. And I think that's about it. That was all that was left of the body. The original body was that. And then the frame rails were original. The motor, the engine block was still original, and the transmission was original.
What motor was it?
Started out as a 350.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I was done, I had at one point I had a 400 small block in it. Another point I had take the 400 and the 350, put them together and made a 3-3 stroker out of it, is what it finally had in it. One time I went through 4 motors in 4 weeks.
Why?
I don't know. I built one, blew it up after 600 miles. We put new rods in it or new bearings, ran it again, blew it up again on the following week. I was trying to make it to Pismo, trying to make it to the coast. And every week I would put it together and try to head out to the beach. I would cruise it around all week, babying it. And by the time I'd get ready to leave, I would hear it start knocking. And my dad didn't know what was going on. We could figure it out. So we finally had a shop in town building me a motor for it. Put the motor in, ran it for 500 miles, and then went to leave. I got about an hour away from home, and it started knocking again. So I turned around, drove it back home, said, screw it, we went to the coast anyways with friends. And then my grandfather stepped in, my dad's dad, and he said, quit babying those damn motors. He said, put it in and run it like you're going to drive it. So we put a new motor in it. We built it back up in the driveway, put the motor in it. First thing we did, we went out and did a bunch of donuts in it, burnouts, and climbed a bunch of hills around the mountains where we lived. And that motor stayed in it through 2 more trucks after that truck was done. Nice. I took that motor out and put it in the lowered C10 I had for a while. But that motor was, he never said baby it. He said run it like you're going to drive it from the time you start it up.
I just feel like it's amazing to me when you say, for example, you finished it after you graduated a year after, but to think how much when you say graduated, school, but you had already become, in my mind, somewhat of a master because of what you did through trial and error, what you did from, kind of on the job training, fabricating and building this truck. And it's crazy to think how much of who you are today because of this truck.
Yeah, my dad always told me when I started that truck that he wouldn't help me do anything on it. I mean, he physically could. He knew how to do everything that I did. He welded, he built it, he raced mud bogs, and he had lifted trucks and all that, but he wanted me to learn how to figure everything out myself. So he would only step in if there was something I absolutely could not do or figure out. And I mean, that was the point of changing cabs by myself, changing front flips, on and off the frame, pulling motors. I built everything on that truck except for the rear end and front end. I didn't do the gears, and I didn't do the transmission. But every other piece of that truck I built by hand myself between the age of 15 and 18.
And you painted it as well?
I painted it as well, yeah. I did all the body work, and I painted it myself. I
guess the big question is, did you stay with, raising sheep because it was such easy money?
Nope, just Bart Simpson was my only one, and then it was done. I got what I needed. Like, that's one of the things that kids don't have that drive for nowadays. I mean, like my sons and stuff, same kind of thing. I tell them, you know, do what it takes to get what you want. And what I had to do was I had to join 4-H, wear a white pants and a white T-shirt and a stupid white hat and a green tie for 6 months. But when I was done, I had the money to buy my truck. Like, I did whatever it took to make that money to buy my first truck. Like, I didn't care if I had to shovel shit for, 3 months and clipper sheep up all the stuff off the sheep to all the wool and everything, and go out there and feed it every day and do all that shit. I did whatever it took to get whatever I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I think that also is kind of your character at a young age, because we see who Brandon Sisco is now and what you've done over the last 30 years since then. And it's pretty remarkable that, those traits were instilled in you, whether they're part of your DNA or the way your dad kind of enticed you or pushed you to say, listen, if you want it, then you've got to go get it.
Yeah. It was funny whenever I turned, I think when I was 18 or 19, and he came up to me one day and he was like, man, I'm kind of torn between having you do what you've done the last few years, because now I think you're better than I am.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a proud moment probably for a dad to see what you did. The boys over at 180 in a Dream, Dixon, they've got a little thing over there. They call it FitFo, and it's figure it the fuck out. And you did. I mean, you made it happen. Did you end up naming the truck Bart Simpson as well with that crazy-ass yellow paint job, or what? What was the truck's name?
Yeah, no, I don't think I ever named it. I don't think I ever named that one. I never even called it a girl. I don't know. Everybody calls it old girl or this or that, and I just never did. In the process of building that truck, I'd also learned a lot. I learned body work, I learned welding, shaving, all that. So, from 16 on, my friends started getting cars, and they started asking me, hey, can you help me shave my door handles, or can you weld this up for me, or can you help me do body work on this? And so from the time I started until that truck was done, I'd already built, 3 or 4 other cars for other people. And then I owned, a handful of cars in between that. I'd started buying 510s, Datsun 510s, and I had 3 510s by the time I finished my pickup. And I had a Nova, I had 2 Jeeps. In the process of building that truck, me and my dad built a CJ5 with a 327 and a 4-speed in it, lifted up on Toyota Land Cruiser axles, and put those same Dixie pegs I took off my truck and his Blazer, we put those on the Jeep. And I drove that Jeep around, and then we built my dad a Blazer on 42s that he did a bunch of work on, full cage and everything yet. So there for a while we had my truck on 44s, my dad's truck, his Blazer on 42s, and our Jeep on 36s, spring over axle, big old tall thing. And those were our play toys. We drove around everywhere and raced the mud bogs in them and go to the beach every weekend and go to sand drags and did all that kind of stuff. I grew up in off-road stuff, so all the lowered stuff is kind of new to me.
It sounds fun. I mean, to think of that driveway when you are describing it that way with a Jeep on 35, 36s, your truck on 44s, your dad's Blazer, 42s. I want to see a picture of your dad's Blazer pulling your truck home on a trailer, because a short wheelbase Blazer pulling a K10, albeit a short bed, but that thing's going to squat a little bit. Now that's a pretty rad pick if there ever was one taken. I'm sure you have a mental image of it, just the way you've kind of described that first day or that course of the first week with you and your truck. But it's pretty crazy to think that Pops was pulling that truck home on a trailer.
Yeah, I actually have a picture of my dad's 69 Blazer. It had an 8-inch lift and 36s on it when we got my truck, and my truck on the trailer behind it.
Yeah, I want to see that. I got to see that, man. That's so rad. And you had a pretty good thing there. Your dad took good care of you in that sense and made sure, that's kind of cool to think back in that heyday. You would have been right at home here in AZ, man, because I'm sure, I don't know, maybe you never did make it down to the river when you were here at, you said you went to ITT Tech, or where did you end up going? UTI?
Yeah, that's actually a whole nother story. I did make it to the river once with the guys from Flying High.
Yeah, That was the shit back then.
Oh, dude, when I showed up in town, I was 18 years old, had that big old lifted truck, but it was like a pretty boy truck. It was chrome and paint and powder coat and all that good stuff. And from where I lived, that was the biggest thing around by far. There was nothing even close to it. So when I moved down to Arizona, I lived in Glendale with my brother and sister. Actually, I lived on 16th Street and Missouri area, but somewhere in that area. And my brother and sister lived in Glendale. So when I was done with school, I moved in with them over there. But the first couple weeks I was in town, I never saw any lifted trucks. I was kind of bummed out. I was like, man, there's like no lift laws here. There's nothing like that. I saw a couple little Toyotas with some big wide Mickey Thompsons on them and stuff like that. So then one day, it's funny because everybody knows about this truck I'm going to talk about right now. But I was coming up the street towards my apartment complex on 16th Street, and I look in my mirror and I see this big ass Chevy coming up on my back. And so I was like, cool, finally, right on. I get to see a big truck. And this guy rolls up next to me at the stoplight, and I look over, and I'm looking into his door handle. Like, this truck was huge. And it was a big seafoam green extended cab long bed, like 94 Chevy truck. And it had a straight frame on it, like a semi truck would have, just like a 4x8 frame, front to back, big old leaf springs, 50-something inch tires on it. And he come rolling next to me, and I just felt like a little kid parked next to the guy at the intersection. So I followed him, and I don't remember the guy's name, but I know he's from around here. I've heard people talk about him. And the guys at Flying High built that truck or helped him build it or something. So he called me out. He's like, hey, man, you got to come out to the river with us and go four-wheeling. I was like, all right, give me your number, and I'll come out there in a couple of weeks or whatever. So they called me up. I met them down at Flying High, and then we drove out to somewhere in the river, Salt River somewhere, or maybe over in Agua Fria. I don't know exactly where it was. And there was this big old Ford come out there with dual lead tires all the way around, military axles. This guy had big military axles and those big old giant tires. And there's 2 or 3 other trucks come out there. And I was the smallest of all of them. And I was, at that time, I'd already lifted my truck a second time. So I did a shackle flip on the rear and dropped the front spring hangers down another 6 inches. So I was 18-inch suspension lift and 4-inch body lift on 44s. And I was the smallest one out there. And so we went in the river, and we're all cruising through the water. And I'd never taken my truck off-road in the mud or water before. It was all pretty. So I was like, screw it, I'll go down there with you guys. And I get in there, and I hit the air lockers, and I'm going through all the mud just fine. And then we're going down this water in this gravel pit area, and they kind of turn off. One goes one way, one goes the other way. And so I stayed in the river. And about 30 seconds later, I dropped into a hole deep enough the water come in my windows, go over the doors.
Holy
and
shit.
So they all just laughed at me, filled my whole interior up with muddy water, and killed my motor. So they pulled me out. We got it running again, and they're like, all right, you're initiated now. And then from that point on, I never washed that truck again. I just mudded it every day, drove it in the rain, drove it everywhere I could until I sold it a couple years later.
Wow. Yeah, they hooked you up, man. They're like, hey, let's get the kid wet.
Yeah, they totally got my feet wet on that one.
Well, I'll tell you what, for the listener, to put it in perspective, growing up out here in Arizona, now I'm not sure, I'm thinking you were either at the East Verde or you were at the Salt, but the Salt was where it was at back then. And growing up, I'm definitely turning into the old man. I took my son out to the Salt the other day with the Blazer, and we're just wheeling around. And you used to be able to kind of go right down to the lake or to the river. If you put your tire in the water, it was a fine. It was $150 a tire, but there's one game cop, and he's never going to catch you. And we just lived on the East Verde and in the Salt, and that's what you did. Back then, everybody was there on Saturdays and Sundays, and now it's all piped off. You can't really make it down. There's no way to really make vehicle access to it, but just imagine literally the Flying High truck and, 40 other style of trucks that Brandon's talking about, his truck, and you were a river rat, and that's just what you did. You went down to the river, you backed your truck in, you had a cooler, some beers, and somebody was usually dying. I mean, it was some crazy times back in that late 80s to mid 90s, and that was the heyday of the river.
Yeah, I was here for school in 94, 95.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, I moved here in 86, and that was dude, if you're like, I'm going to the river, that was a big ass deal. Now, granted, I was 13 when I moved here, but then high school, 16 driving, all the way up to even once I got hired in the fire department, which was 97, we were still going out to the river. I mean, it was still, and I still go out there every now and then. It's a great place to be. But that truck is exactly, when I see the picture of that truck is the river. That truck is those people, and you probably fit in real well. Whatever happened to that truck?
Well, my ex-wife did not like that truck from the time we were dating when I was building it. At one point, she even had me put it in storage for 6 months and not work on it.
That should have been a sign, Brandon. That should have been a sign.
Yeah, I know that now. So,
damn, son. Come on.
When I finally did finish it, she hated driving with me in it anywhere because it got so much attention from anybody and from the ladies.
Yeah.
There was plenty of cops being pulled up as I drove by. I remember that.
Big old sign singing out the door, freaking show us your tits. There goes freaking Sisco. Did you ever get pulled over in that thing? Oh, I think we lost him. Sisco. We lost him. He started talking about titties and we lost him. Let me see here. Let's see what's going on. He had a little, so we have these things called haboobs, and he was saying there was a storm running through. He is on the other side of town. So he is on the west side of town of Phoenix. I'm on the east side. So let's get him again here. Let's see what happens.
Hey, man, what happened?
Damn, son, we started talking about titties and you freaking, you bailed on me.
Yeah, I said titties and all of a sudden it just cut out.
Yeah, I don't know. Your audio is a lot less. That's pretty crazy. But I don't know. The call dropped. So maybe your ex-wife's got that. Your ex-wife's got that curse on you, dude. You start talking about your ex-wife and the titties, and next thing you know, the call drops. The call dropped just like the tops were dropping.
Yeah, so tops were dropping pretty good. And the one thing she hated was pulling up to a stoplight, sitting in a turn lane or something, and people pointing and waving and, staring. She hated people staring at us. She used to always say, "Why are they staring at us?" I said, "Well, because we're in a truck that's 6 feet off the ground. We're bright yellow." And that's what happens.
Did you, it makes me think back then, guys would all have their trucks like that, and they'd get busted for mud flaps. And in Arizona, if it was a sport utility vehicle, you didn't have to have mud flaps. So a buddy of mine, high school guy, he had like a K5 Blazer, probably like 75, that had, I don't know, 10-inch lift rolling on 44 hogs, and he didn't have to have mud flaps. But if you had like a 33-inch tire and a 6-inch lift, you had to have mud flaps if you were a truck in Arizona, and you'd get pulled over. So what guys did is they made these little makeshift mud flap things, and then or the receiver that would go in your, receiver and then flap over to give you some sort of mud flap. But I don't know, a friend of mine, including myself, didn't have a freaking mud flap violation or some type of mud flap, ticket back then.
Oh yeah, that truck was a ticket magnet. I still have a folder it's a manila folder, and it is literally packed full of fixed tickets from that truck. There was points where I had to put an extra set of headlights below the bumper. I ordered a set of snowplow headlights that had turn signals and everything built into them. I built a bracket and mounted them underneath my headlights. I had mud flaps I'd put on it before. You name it. The cops always were getting at me. The first night I actually took it out cruising, when I got it done, my uncle, my stepmom's brother, was a brand new Visalia PD. And he always gave me shit when I was building it, saying that as soon as I took it out, he's going to pull me over and give me a ticket. And, this is like a year and a half going on that we were talking about this. Sure as shit, first night I took it out, he pulled me over on Willie Boulevard in front of everybody, our entire car club, and gave me a seatbelt ticket.
What's a seatbelt ticket? I mean, he can see that you're not wearing your seatbelt?
Yeah. Well, he knew my truck didn't have a seatbelt in it.
Oh.
Because I hadn't even put them in yet. So he knew it didn't even have them in it.
So obviously he was just busting your balls, or is he just a royal dick?
He was just busting my balls, but he knew it was a ticket. So I just had to put seatbelts in and get it written off. But just in front of everybody, having all the cops and the lights and everything all flashing in front of everybody, it was kind of a dick move, but at the same time, it was funny. Could have been worse.
Well, with that color and in 95 or whatever, that time frame, I could see that thing, it's like a bright red Ferrari or Lamborghini or something, that yellow truck, that big old hog rolling down the strip, that's, yeah. You learned more than just how to work on trucks back then.
Yeah, I learned how to sign tickets off, for sure.
Yeah. So that thing disappeared? Your wife, ex-wife, put it in storage, or what happened to it?
So my ex-wife, after we got married, she was pregnant with my first boy, Logan, my oldest boy. He's 21 right now. So she told me to put the truck up for sale, and a friend of mine, we needed something that could haul more than, 2 people. So she made me buy a 1989 Toyota Corolla.
Dude, you had to literally check your balls into her, because you went from driving that truck to a Corolla. Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah. So we went down to the used car lot, and I signed my life away, and I bought a 1989 Toyota Corolla. And we just moved into our first house, 1-car garage, white picket fence, the whole spiel, And I had my big old lifted truck sitting in the driveway out front, and put it up for sale. I'd had it stripped pretty much because I was building another C10, a lowered C10, that I can get into later, but it was also yellow. So I was building her a truck, and a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to trade my pickup, my StepSide, for a Blazer, 69 Blazer. No motor, no tranny, same as my truck, no motor, no tranny, straight across. So I said, all right, when I put the motor and tranny in, it'll be room enough for everybody to fit. I can still keep my lifted truck, blah, blah, blah. So the day my oldest boy came home from the hospital, I took a picture of him standing in front of the truck with it. And then my buddy came and picked it up and drove it off.
Dude, I got mad respect for you because of you. I know I'm assuming you felt like, listen, I got a kid. I'm doing the right thing. I can't have this thing. And I understand the place because, I've got kids too, but it's crazy to think now you look back and you're like, what you did.
That was the hardest thing. I mean, I just got choked up right now thinking about it. That was the hardest thing to ever do. Like, that was so hard.
Yeah. You had that truck for, at that point, how old were you when you had your son? You had that truck about 6 years?
I'd start on it, when I was like 15, so I'd probably had it, I think I was 21 maybe, 19, 21. 20, somewhere in there, 20. And so I watched him take it away, and then I never did build the Blazer, ended up selling the Blazer. And then a friend of mine that bought it, he lowered it down a little bit, put a big block in it, and tore it up for a couple years or a couple months, whatever. And then he sold it to another friend of mine that had sat out at his house out in the country for a while, and then Floyd. And then Floyd lifted it back up where I had it, put a small block back in it. And then at one point I almost got it back. A few years later, when I was about 25, it came across as being for sale, and I had a 94 extended cab 4-wheel drive that I was driving as my daily that I was trying to sell, and we came across a deal to trade back and forth for him. And I got the truck back from him. I had it at my shop for about a week, drove it around a little bit, and then the guy's wife backed out of the trade. So he came, picked it up, and then it got sold somewhere, went up Northern California. I haven't seen it since. Yeah,
that sucks. I mean, you had it in your possession.
I had it in my possession. I had worked on it. I had been driving it for a week, and then it left again.
Oh, that's a microcosm of the future episode that we're going to talk about. We got a lot of builds. We've got a lot of fun. We've got some craziness. We've got some heartbreak. First Ride series is couldn't get any better with that one right there. Brandon Sisco, Big Yellow. That's awesome, dude. I can't wait to get this show going. You guys, we'll be right back. So this is going to drop on Friday. And Tuesday will be the main body of this episode. So tune in on Tuesday for the main body. Brandon, we're going to have some fun. You better go get some more beers, dude.
Oh, I'm lining them up right now. Thanks, Ronnie.
All right, we'll be right back, guys. Late.